Hello, folks. This is Bob Safale, and we are, of course, with the DEER report, the Digital Experts Intelligence Report, and this is the Crash Training segment. Folks, this is the big interview, and our special guest today is Derek Meyer. He is the founder of a really cool company called Cryptovault, and you're going to hear a lot about that company in the near future. We're going to have some additional interviews with Derek. Derek, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. Excited to be here.
I am too. I tell you what, Derek has a really. I almost want to have this interview about what Derek is doing, but we'll have that. We'll have that soon enough. Hey, Derek, let me ask you a question.
hmm
Which exchanges would you say are the best for the beginners, the newbies? You know, maybe it's they're trying to get in and do their first purchase. What would you advise?
Yeah, if you're looking at getting in for the first time, I would suggest something like Coinbase. And a big part of that depends on whether or not you have any experience with trading. Whether it's on the stock market or anything similar to that. But Coinbase is one of the few exchanges that has a user interface that would be comparable to something like Facebook, where it's very simple to move through, and you don't have to be a software developer in order to figure it out. So that's what I would suggest at first. As you start to get more familiar with the space, there's other exchanges that you can move to. Because one of the big downsides of Coinbase and their trading platform called GDAX is that they only support 4 different cryptocurrencies.
I tell you what. In fact, that's that's coming up as one of my next questions. Tell me about fees, because just like there are different fees for different merchant accounts when you're using credit cards, is there a
Mhm.
difference in fees with the different exchanges?
Yeah, and a lot of them have that calculated on a what's known as a maker or taker fee. So if you're going to be submitting an order to buy or sell a cryptocurrency at a certain price, then you're essentially making an order. Most people have a set fee for both maker and taker of around 0.25%. But different exchanges will try to entice users to their exchange by adjusting those fees. Gemini is a great example of that, and they're run by the Winklevoss twins. And depending on your trade volume, the more you trade, the lower those fees go. So that it can go down to, I believe, as low as 0.1% on each trade.
Hmm.
Now, another factor that goes into this is if you're initially buying cryptocurrency, which could be done on a site like Coinbase. There's also fees that go into how you're purchasing it. So if you're using a standard debit or credit card, there's usually a 3 to 4% card processing fee. Whereas if you're doing a wire transfer, then your fees can be significantly less.
Oh, so you're really getting double hit. You're getting hit by the
Yeah.
exchange, and you're
Yep.
getting hit. Yeah, huh, interesting. I don't know if too many people really get that. By the way, folks, the Winklevoss brothers or twins were, you may have remembered them from the movie Social Network.
Mhm.
Essentially, those are the two guys that, to some degree, may have been screwed by the founder of Facebook, but that's a whole nother story.
And they seem
Um,
to be doing well now, though.
yeah, they're doing okay. I think they even got a couple $1 billion from Facebook when all is said and done.
Yeah.
Uh, that's fascinating regarding the maker taker. Is it so? Is it possible you get hit on both sides, or you're just going to get hit on one side?
Well, you'll just get hit on one side. Now, the way that that works is that an exchange operates off of a second layer on top of the blockchain. So if you're receiving or if you're sending Bitcoin to an exchange, you're not sending it to a specific wallet. You're sending it to a pool. And then when users are trading it around on that exchange, they're essentially trading it in a centralized location where you know Gemini or Bittrex or one of these exchanges will just reallocate who owns what. So that's when the fees actually start to come into place, is when you start to reallocate their centralized ledger, so to speak.
Okay, so let's say for the newbie, if you've got your Bitcoin in your wallet and you want to sell the Bitcoin, does that mean that you send your Bitcoin to something like a Coinbase?
Yeah, if you send it over to Coinbase, It's very simple to sell and to go back into your bank account. One fee that I didn't mention earlier, which is, we're just stacking fees at this point, is that Coinbase also charges you a fee, which is their profit. So their standard fee is 1.5%. Now, selling cryptocurrency has less fees than buying cryptocurrency, depending on how you're doing it. For example, like you obviously won't sell a cryptocurrency using a debit card, but you would buy it using a debit card. So there wouldn't be any merchant fees there. So once you sell it, then they would transfer it to your bank account.
That makes a lot of sense. So, okay, so with Coinbase, theoretically, you're getting hit for if you're selling it, you're getting hit for a transaction fee and a profit fee. Does that mean if you send the Bitcoins to them at 10,000, I'm just going to be real basic here. You send a Bitcoin to them for $10,000 and they sell it for $20,000 just for the hell of it. They're going to hit you on the transaction and for 1.5% of that spread from 10,000 to 20,000.
Yeah, they're going to essentially, if you're already holding on to a Bitcoin and you want to sell it back to Coinbase, and let's say the current market price is 20,000, as you mentioned, then what they're going to do is they're going to buy that Bitcoin and then they'll send to your bank account 19,008 or 19,700 roughly.
Okay.
I think my math is slightly off on that, but yeah.
Okay, interesting. So you got to be aware of these fees. Now, this may be a tough question to answer, but which exchanges out there give access to newer currencies? As you mentioned with Coinbase, it's limited to 4. Which are there exchanges out there that are a bit more open-minded on what currencies are there?
Yeah, absolutely. And when you start getting into that, you get into this whole spectrum because there's over 1,300 different cryptocurrencies, and most people have heard of, Bitcoin, maybe Ethereum, and Litecoin. So these other projects, these other coins and tokens, they range quite a bit and have, some have a pretty high market capitalization. Some of them have a very low market capitalization, which just means that they're more volatile than the larger ones. But as we know, Bitcoin's already pretty volatile. But to answer your question, one of the exchanges that I prefer to use is an exchange called Bittrex. It's Bittrex. And they have over 200 different cryptocurrencies on their exchange. And they generally stick to larger cryptocurrencies, whereas there's some exchanges like coinexchange.io where they'll take, the penny stocks of the crypto space, so to speak.
I'm trying to pull up now Bittrex, but who knows? Checking your browser before accessing. There we go.
Yep. Yeah, you can see if you
folks,
go to the market.
Okay.
Yeah, if you
unfortunately, this is limited, but why don't you go ahead and verbalize it? I can't necessarily show it here, but go ahead.
Okay. No worries. Yeah. Now, one of the big problems with a lot of these exchanges is their user interface is just not made for people, or it's not made for the average Joe. It's made for people who are already, very familiar with, the stock market, to use it as similar industry, and on how to make, market and limit orders and what a stop loss is. All these things that are in the investment world that aren't necessarily something that the average user would be familiar with. But yeah, so this
is... I've been able to pull up markets. So let's see if you could help us here.
Yeah, so if you click on, go ahead and click on Ripple, just as an example.
Okay. Clicking right here.
Yeah,
that,
so
by the way, is a coin buy. That's one of our favorite coins.
Ripple. Yeah, totally. And they've been having a pretty good month or two. But yeah, so this will show you, the price over time with a chart. On the right, you have some basic information in terms of the 24-hour volume. What's the high price? What's the low price? And then if you scroll down, you'll go to where you can actually buy or sell Ripple, which is not, at least when I was first looking at it, it was not generally intuitive. So yeah, this is kind of an overview of Bittrex. CoinExchange.io is set up in a very similar fashion, but they have coins that wouldn't necessarily have as high of a market capitalization. So they would have the, as I like to call it, the penny stocks of the crypto space.
Yeah, we can hear you now. Let me get this last question off to you
Sure.
before if we lose you anymore. But let me ask you this: which exchange is the easiest? Now I know you did mention Coinbase. Would you say that's the easiest for people to join?
Yeah, I would gear people more towards Coinbase initially, just because of their user interface. I mean, as you can see from looking up and down Bittrex, it's not necessarily something that's user friendly in the way that Facebook would be. Coinbase is great just because it's a very easy experience to go through. However, comparing what's the easiest one is really just comparing multiple exchanges, and it's not the same as comparing one to something as simple as making a standard Gmail account. So I would say that Coinbase is definitely the easiest of the mix there. But even with creating an account on their website, they have had a lot of troubles with verifying user identification. It can sometimes take a week to create an account. So you will sometimes run into those barriers as well.
It's funny you say that because we just had another big interview with the founder of CloudCoin, and he said the same thing you did. It can take up to a week just to get on an exchange because of verification. And it's so funny when cryptocurrencies were first kind of getting out there with Bitcoin, the whole deal was being anonymous. Well, that's hardly the case when you're having to give all your info to Coinbase.
Yeah, which is, and that's a fascinating topic in itself, and that this whole space is giving utility, or I guess functionality, to the subject of money. And there's been a question that no one's really ever asked, because money's always just been money, and that's the way that money works. But we're now at a point where we can, make a decision on, well, how do we want our money to work, and what do we want it to be able to do? And there's a great deal of people that want it to be something that's a private network to where other people don't know about your money. And there's other people that focus their attention more on how instantaneous they want their money to be, and they want to have rapid access to it and be as soon as they receive it, they want to be able to use it. And this whole space is fascinating because you get to see what people are interested in and what ideas people can have to make a more efficient system.
That's fantastic. So at the end of the day, is it reasonable to say that maybe our newer listeners should start with Coinbase, get their feet wet, get moving around, and then migrate to something like Bittrex? Would that be your kind of overarching advice?
Yeah, absolutely. And then definitely educate yourself before you buy any cryptocurrency. Get as much information as you can, just like you would with anything else that you purchase. Each different coin and token has different properties that go along with it. Some are better than others, and some you might like, and some you might purchase and then realize, why am I purchasing this? I actually don't like this, which that's happened to me. So I strongly recommend do your research, get as much education as you can. It's a little bit overwhelming at first, but as you go through it, you start to see a lot of similarities, and it becomes easier and easier.
Excellent. And by the way, folks, those who are listening right now and those who will listen and recording here, we're going to have a really, really nice announcement I hope in the very near future about Cryptovault. Wouldn't you say, Derek?
Oh yeah, I'm definitely excited for it.
We can't say anything more than that, but Get ready for it. So, Derek, listen, I want to thank you for joining with the big interview today.
Yeah,
I'm going to have to ask you to come back on some other issues, but would you mind coming
absolutely.
back and talking to our listeners?
Yeah, we could probably talk for days, Bob.
I think I'd like that a lot. Thank you a lot, Derek, and thank you a lot for our big interview listeners. Have a great day today, and learn about those favorite coins too. Thanks a lot, folks.